Welcome to the Deep Wealth Podcast, where you learn how to extract your business and personal deep wealth. I'm your host, Jeffrey Feldberg. This podcast is brought to you by Deep Wealth and the 90-Day Deep Wealth Experience. When it comes to your business deep wealth, your exit or liquidity event is the most important financial decision of your life. But unfortunately, up to 90% of liquidity events fail. Think about all that time and your hard-earned money wasted. Of the quote-unquote successful liquidity events, most business owners leave 50% to over 100% of the deal value in the buyer's pocket and don't even know it. I should know. I said no to a seven-figure offer and yes to mastering the art and the science of a liquidity event. 2 years later, I said yes to a different buyer with a 9-figure deal. Are you thinking about an exit or liquidity event? Don't become a statistic and make the fatal mistake of believing the skills that built your business are the same ones to sell it. After all, how can you master something you've never done before? Let the 90-Day Deep Wealth Experience and the 9-step roadmap of preparation help you capture the best deal instead of any deal. At the end of this episode, take a moment and hear from business owners like you who went through the Deep Wealth Experience. Dr. Virgie Bright Ellington is an internal medicine physician and a medical billing expert. A dedicated patient advocate, she earned her degree at the University of Michigan Medical School and trained at the Cambridge Hospital of Harvard Medical School. After practicing more than 20 years in primary care and psychiatric settings and as a health insurance executive, Dr. Virgie helps patients maximize billing accuracy and avoid financial devastation. Welcome to the Deep Wealth Podcast, and the doctor is in the house. Yes, we have a doctor in the house. You heard the official intro, but we not only have a doctor, we have the host of a radio show, an author, a thought leader, and someone who's just really making a difference out there. And you may be wondering, Jeffrey, what the heck is going on with the Deep Wealth Podcast? Why are you having a doctor on the show? And as we like to say, the whole podcast is based around extracting your personal and business deep wealth. And what we're going to be talking about today, my personal thesis is your outer world is a reflection of your inner world. And on this topic, we're going to do a deep dive on if you're worried, if you're stressed, you know what, you're not showing up for your best game in the business. So let's talk about that. So it's going to be smooth sailing. Virgie, welcome to the Deep Wealth Podcast. It really is an honor to have you with us. And you know what? There's always a story behind the story. Virgie, what's your story? What got you to where you are today?
Well, first, Jeffrey, thank you so much for having me. The work that you're doing is absolutely, is paradigm changing. And thank you. And thank you for having me. But I got here through really, I would say, a long history of just doing what I do. So I was a board certified practicing internal medicine physician for years. And then I was a healthcare insurance executive, U.S. private healthcare company executive. And I thought that I knew everything about the U.S. healthcare system from all perspectives. I thought I had a 360-degree view. But it wasn't until I became a patient that I really figured out, oh my gosh, the U.S. for-profit healthcare system is really gouging, frankly, the American public. Mm-hmm. And it's because the U.S. is the only industrialized country where you have to have medical financial literacy. The U.S. is the only industrialized country where this is an issue. So I was a patient and my hospital roommate, I had to get hospitalized. Mm-hmm. And my hospital roommate was sharing a story about how this was her second actually admission in the past year. Mm-hmm. And she was really sharing with me that she was really worried because the last time she was here, the year prior, on the day of discharge, one of the hospital administrators came into her room and said, before you can leave, you have to sign this form saying that you will agree to pay whatever your insurance doesn't pay for this visit, for this hospital stay. Jeffrey, I will be completely honest. The curtain dropped. I saw red. I was enraged because I knew Number one, she had been tricked and intimidated and frankly bullied into signing something that's going to put her and her family in debt for the rest of their lives. She wasn't working outside the home. Her husband worked for a 24-hour diner. So I knew very modest income. And I was just so outraged. And I thought, you know what, Virgie, don't get angry. Don't get mad. Get to getting, do something. And that's how Crush Medical Debt was born.
Wow. So the doctor becomes a patient. And as a quick aside, not just any doctor, I know you studied at the University of Michigan at the medical school, and then you trained at some school. I don't know if other people would have heard of it, something called Harvard Medical School. I don't know if that rings a bell with other people, but really you're out there with the best of the best doing your thing. Then you become a patient and you saw firsthand. It sounds like that was a game changer for you in terms of what you saw and what you experienced.
Yeah. So I knew that, look, okay, it's kind of theoretical. America's number one cause of debt and stress and bankruptcy is medical bills. But
Right.
I thought that's because it's a for-profit system and not everyone has insurance. But that's not the whole story, Jeffrey. I found out it's because even with insurance, half of the people that, again, number one cause of debt and bankruptcy in the United States have insurance, and they think it's quote unquote good insurance. So in the United States, the for-profit system does not protect you from losing your life savings and your life's work to just one accident or a serious illness. And I like to say most Americans are just one injury or accident or a serious illness away from a lifetime of debt or worse.
Which is nuts. And, as you're talking, Virgie, I'm reminiscing about a time we were in our Florida home and my daughter, she cut her toe. It was just a bizarre accident. It was a 3-4 hour visit at the hospital. It was essentially a few stitches. But when it came time for the bill, and thankfully we had insurance, it was thousands of dollars. And so you can imagine if it's just something as simple as a few stitches and the hospital ran all kinds of tests, we won't get into that, but it can just be debilitating. Why don't we start at the beginning of, unfortunately, this sad story that so many of us face when it comes to health? Something unexpected happens, we're in the hospital, even though we may have insurance, we find it doesn't cover certain things. How does this start for most people that ultimately gets them into such horrific financial issues?
So just basic numbers that many of us have heard, but they just like gloss over our head. Unless it's happening to us, we don't really have a real picture of what's really happening. We've heard the statistics that it used to be $500, now it's $400, that the average American does not have $400 or $500 to be able to come up with the cash to pay for an emergency. Now, let's say that you're in a car accident. Let's say that your appendix needs to come out. You need to have an emergency hernia surgery. Even if you have awesome insurance, and we're doing audio, so you can't see me, but I have my fingers in quotations, great insurance, quote, unquote. If your deductible is, which is average $1,000, $1,500, and that's in the low end, and or you have co-insurance, and that's a thing where you're responsible for a portion of the total bill. If the deductible, let's say you don't have co-insurance, if the deductible alone is $1,500, you're already sunk. You're done for the average American. And the clock starts every year. January 1, every year, you've got to meet that deductible. Basically, we're uninsured. Most Americans with insurance are essentially uninsured. Some, unfortunately, there are stories of deductibles that are unheard of, $7,500. And some I've heard of some now that are $10,000. So effectively, insured Americans are uninsured. So that's how we get here.
And what's amazing with your book, firstly, and we'll have this in the show notes, Crush Medical Debt. I mean, talk about a compelling title. You take what's otherwise a complex area, and not to confuse simple with simplicity, you really help to break it down and to make it easy to understand. And when I was going through the book, what was surprising to me, because I never would have thought, just a layperson looking in, there's all kinds of, in part one you talk about this, there's all kinds of mistakes on the medical bills to begin with. One thing that we have these high deductibles that can put financial strain on us, but then maybe we're paying for some things that we shouldn't be. So can you talk to us about, okay, how could it possibly be that the hospital is making mistakes, and then Since they are making mistakes, what are we looking for? What would be a telltale sign?
So that's a great question, Jeffrey. And you said, how can the hospital make these mistakes? It's not the providers usually that's making the mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
It is the administrators, the billing department, the finance department, the providers, the docs, the caretakers that provide the care. They're totally aware. I'm going to say, I'm a physician.
Sure.
I was totally disconnected, had no idea what was going on in the patient accounts department, in the billing department, in the financial end of things. Had zero idea. It's disconnected. The mistakes, and this is what I'm teaching people the longer I do this work, they're actually not mistakes. 80 to 90% of every medical bill generated in the United States have mistakes. And Jeffrey, if you can guess, it's not going to be in the interest of the patient. It's going to be the interest of the provider and or the insurance company if you have insurance. I used to say they're mistakes, but I don't say it a lot anymore because it's by the process. It is the U.S. healthcare system process. Debt is not a side effect. It is part of the system. That's how we get here.
Scary. As business owners, imagine if we send every invoice to a client that out of 10 invoices, 9 of them are not accurate. I mean, we'd be put out of business. So how is it that the hospitals are getting away with this? The billing, the administration, how do they do this?
Because the average American, I wouldn't even say the average American, again, I was part of the system. I worked in the system. I didn't know 99.9% of the American public population does not know that this is happening. 99.9% of us are not medically, financially literate. And in the United States, without medical financial literacy, you have no financial stability. That's how it happens. There are many examples, and the example I give often is my example. So this visit where I was really angry about what I realized was being done to people, from that same visit, 6 months later, that hospital stay, unexpected hospital stay, about 6 months later, I get a bill from them. And the same institution that tricked my hospital roommate, and that's how Crush Medical Debt was born. The bill, I'm not going to call it a bill because it was a statement.
Okay.
It's not a real bill. And I talk about that a lot. A real bill is something that has what's called CPT codes, which is what barcodes are to products in a store. Every product has one. In the United States, every medical service has a barcode, and that's called a CPT code. So what I call them now, these statements that you get in the mail, unless it has a CPT code on it, and that's the type of bill you get, unfortunately, only in my experience, about once every out of 10 times, 8 to 9 times, you don't get a real bill, meaning it doesn't have CPT codes on it. This particular I call them statements, or I call them like wish lists from the hospital, from the facility, because they're wishing and hoping and praying that you'll fall for it. That number in the upper, usually right-hand corner saying patient responsibility or patient owes. So I got a bill, or again, a statement, in the upper right-hand corner, it said basically $90,000. You owe $89,000, something like that.
Wow, that's crazy.
And so I looked at it, and of course, I went down the statement, didn't see anything on the top that said CPT codes. It just said brief description, 3 lines, Jeffrey. I think one line said OR services. I had to have emergency surgery. So OR services, $361,000.
Wow.
I can't even get it out. I often say I laugh so I don't cry. It's just crazy. The next line said medical pathology. So any tissue they took during the surgery, they sent it to the pathologist to make sure there's no cancer hiding there or something. Sure. And they said that line item said $44. And it was interesting, that line item next to it had a CPT code. So it looked official, looked like it could be a real service. And then the third line said patient insurance / adjustments, something like $261,000.
Oh my goodness.
And then the last line was, almost basically $89,000. I just rounded off to $90,000 to keep the math simple. And it said, there you go. You owe it. And here's a number to call if you have any questions. So I was cracking up. I have to tell you, I was laughing so hard when I looked at this. And I remember it was a weekday. It was the middle of the day. And I didn't have anybody. I knew my husband was busy. I shouldn't bother him, but I can bother my best friend at work. If I can con her into picking up the phone in the middle of a work day,
Right.
I'm good. So she picks up the phone and I said, look, I just had to get this off my chest. And I told her the story that I've gotten this bill that is clearly a balance bill because my insurance is in network with the hospital, with this provider.
Okay.
Now, in network means that they have contracted with the provider, in this case, the hospital system has agreed to accept whatever the insurance company that they contract with, to accept whatever they pay for their services as payment in full. Not including, of course, if your plan includes deductible and co-insurance, that kind of thing, or copay. But anything other than that is payment in full. Just to keep the math simple, I say, okay, let's say the facility charges or the provider charges $100 for the particular medical service, but the insurance that they've contracted with and agreed to accept as payment in full only pays $10 for that service.
Okay.
Balance billing is coming after the patient for the balance, in this case, $90. That's a breach of contract. Most Americans don't know this. Every facility knows that. 99, again, I'm not exaggerating, 99.9% of us, even those of us that were in the business thinking we have a 365-degree view, we don't know this. So I tell her this and I explain to her that this provider's in network and what balance billing is. They're trying to balance bill me for $90,000. And I'm cracking up. And she says, you know what, Virgie? You're the only person I know who's laughing when everybody else would be curled up in a fetal position crying. And that's my story. That's the biggest story I give as an example of how the system tricks you into believing that you owe money that you totally don't. And if you don't know any better, that's your kid's college fund. That's your home down payment. If you want a home for your family, that could be your life savings because you believe that you owe it. That could be the starter fund for your business, your dreams to being able to leave behind the 9 to 5 and start your entrepreneurial passion and your gift to the world. That's all gone because you were tricked into paying something you totally don't owe.
Virgie, not to oversimplify this, from what I'm hearing, let's use that $100 example that you're giving. And the in-network insurance said, okay, we're going to pay $10 of that. Is that where it really should have stopped? And the hospital is saying, this is all the insurance company is going to pay, and that's it. We're not going to get any more. Should that be the end of the story?
You got it. That's it, Jeffrey. That's it.
But instead, they're saying, okay, we can add whatever numbers we want to this, make it look official in a fake invoice, not even an invoice.
It's not a real bill. They say, this is your bill. They'll tell you it's your bill. They'll have bill all over it. This is your bill. Call us if you have problems paying your bill. So just out of curiosity, again, just for my entertainment, I just wanted to see, because at this point I was writing the book and I was like, they really don't know that they're talking to the author of What Your Doctor Wants You to Know to Crush Medical Debt. So I called them to see what they have to say for themselves. And I said, look, I have this statement. I called it a bill. I got this bill and it says that my insurance paid this, but I have a balance of $90,000. I said, can you explain to me, like, what is this? And the response was, and this is how they're trained. So you have to be nice to them because they don't know any better. This is the way they're trained. The folks on the front lines, the front desk representatives, customer service, they said, well, you're going to have to talk to your insurance company about that. We can't answer any questions about insurance. We can't talk to you about what your insurance paid and how much they paid and why. But, you know, $90,000, that's a lot of money. You can't be expected to pay that all at once. Can I transfer you to my team member who can help you make a payment plan?
Wow. Talk about assuming the sale. I've been in marketing and sales my entire life.
Exactly,
what a
right?
wonderful close that is. So firstly, they scare you because as soon as you hear you have to talk to your insurance company, I know what's going through my mind. Oh, gosh. There goes weeks and hours of getting nowhere and bureaucracy, and all the insurance company is going to say, hey, this is what your plan paid out. What do you want us to do? This is all that we're on the hook to pay, and the rest is up to you. And so what a depressing story when you walk out of that conversation to, okay, you're in the wrong. So let us figure out a payment plan to have you begin to work this off. Wow, I can only imagine. I'm trying not to be cynical here. I'm usually glass is half full kind of guy here. But the hospitals, they must have some really powerful contacts and advocates on the Hill who are allowing this fraudulent kind of activity to happen. And it's quote unquote legal. This is just insane.
Yes, the hospitals know, the providers know, the medical facilities and chains know that it's immoral, it's unethical, but it's not illegal. So yes. And I do want to point out something in their defense, the insurance companies, the for-profit US healthcare insurance companies, and I say in their defense because God knows they need one, but in their defense,
Yeah.
you'd be surprised if you have insurance, call them. Actually, they don't want their members to be balance billed, but why don't they go after providers for balance billing? It's not their problem and it doesn't affect their bottom line.
Sure.
That's why they're not worried about it. But if you call them and say, look, I got this bill and they said, you guys paid this. Can you tell me how much you actually paid and what you covered and why? And that kind of thing, they'll go over it with you.
Okay.
So don't be intimidated and thinking, oh my gosh, they're trying to scare me away to talk to my insurance company. You know what? Talk to your insurance company because they'll say, wait a minute, we got that. I wasn't going to bore you with the details, but I actually called my insurance company just again to get a full picture of the story because I was so entertained. I thought this is too good to be true. This is like the cover story for my book, for the book to help people. And so I told them the whole story. The hospital financial department. I want to separate the providers, the actual physicians from providing the care from the finance department. The finance department sent the insurance company the same exact amount that it was trying to collect from me.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Yeah.
So the insurance company is vigilant.
They know that it's easier. Providers know that it's easier to get money from the patients, the American patient who has zero medical financial literacy. They're dealing with the Goliath. The U.S. healthcare system is run by the U.S. for-profit, publicly traded health insurance companies, period. They run the show. How does it go? He who has the goal makes the rules. Well, the insurance companies, they make the goals. So they know, the providers know they're not going to get it from the insurance companies. It's easier to get it from the patient, to go after the innocent patient who knows nothing.
Fair enough. I'm a layperson. I don't understand the whole medical billing system. I want to go back to that incident where my daughter needed 1 or 2 stitches. That's all it was on her big toe. And we're at the hospital and we're waiting. And they keep on coming up saying, we want to run some blood tests and we want to make sure that her kidneys and livers are okay. Not so much from a billing standpoint. I just got frustrated and said, excuse me, this is just a toe. Let's just stitch it up. I don't think we need to find out if the blood is tainted or anything else like that. Let's just get on with this so we can get out of here. Is this a typical protocol that the doctors are being told by the hospital? Here's a checklist that you must do? Because hearing what you're saying now in the back of my mind, I'm saying, hey, every test that they run, whether it's needed or not, they've run the test now, and that just begins to, it all adds up, and you get these huge hundreds of thousands of dollars that they're coming after you for, perhaps for tests that aren't even needed. When you talk about finding the mistakes in the medical bills, is this a way to even prevent some of those things from showing up in the first place? Am I on base with that, off base with that? What's your take as both a doctor and now an expert on, crushing medical debt? What's going on here?
Good looking out, Jeffrey. Great. This is the issue. If it's in an emergency room and not urgent care, anything less other than an emergency room, in an emergency room situation, an emergency room physician is just going to want to make sure that there is nothing emergent going on, something that can hurt you or be a complication of what's going on at that instance that can take you out when you leave the facility in the next day or two. So that's why they'll recommend tests. Now, if it's not an emergency, the provider who recommends tests, maybe you may not need them. And a good question to ask is, what happens if I don't do this test? Or if I don't do this test now, or I don't do the test this week, are the issues? What could happen? I have to say, again, providers were physicians. Physicians are so divorced from, we've lost control of the US healthcare system decades and decades ago. We just want to make sure you're okay. We want to fix you, help you, make sure that you're well, fix things, make sure nothing's coming down the pike that could hurt you. We don't know about the money. We're clueless about the money. So we're thinking we're ordering a panel of tests just to make sure nothing is wrong.
Got
So
it.
if
Okay.
you're in a situation and you're not in the emergency room, say, hey, what would happen if I didn't have this test and that test? What will this test show me? And how will this change you decide to do, or what we should do? Will it change our treatment? Will it change my treatment?
Terrific question. And I suppose, Virgie, with that question, we also have to use some common sense because you're saying, and I really believe that, and I get it, doctors don't know what these things cost. So, of course, a doctor wants your well-being. They just want to make sure everything's okay.
But if you don't see CPT code, those letters at the top, I won't bore you with what it stands for. I know people who've been in the insurance industry for decades and they don't remember what CPT stands for. It's a long, convoluted word or three words. And I was talking to a radio host that says, you know what, Virgie, we should call this. He said, Dr. Virgie, CPT should stand for can't pay this. That's what CPT stands. Anyway, it's not a real bill. Great job, Jeffrey. It's not a real bill if it does not have CPT somewhere at the top with a list of 5 digits underneath. Someone was tricked with thinking, oh, it said code at the top. It said service code, not CPT code. Okay. And it was like 7 digits. I'm like, that's not a real bill. That's not a CPT code. So apologies. I had to get that in, Jeffrey. So can you ask the question again?
I mean, what's wonderful is, and everyone, please get the book, because the best time to know about something is when you don't need it. By the time you need to know this, you're under pressure. You're probably not in the best state of mind. And then you get this crazy paperwork that's going to throw you for a little bit of a loop there. But so what I was going on with this, what you've illuminated us with is you want to see specifically CPT, can't pay this, that's a nickname. That's how we're going to remember it, to see if it's on the paperwork in the first place. And then we can speak to our insurance company just to see, hey, what's really going on here? What did you do? What didn't you do? And so we're doing that. And in each of the steps that you list in part 1, when it comes to this paperwork that you're getting, you're telling us what we can do, what we should be doing, of how to get in best position possible. But you say something interesting as well, because really the billing departments, again, data point of 1, just me, but it sounds like they're really playing off social programming. You owe money, and if you don't pay what you're owed, you're not a good person. You're scandalous. And that is a heavy weight. And so when it comes to this paperwork, you're saying, hey, Jeffrey, it's not final. You can actually speak to the hospital, speak to the billing department, and you even in the book talk about negotiating, which most people are afraid to do. Oh my goodness, how embarrassing. I can't ask for anything. So what are some strategies when we get this paperwork and it has all these crazy numbers on it, and we've looked for the CPT, we've spoken to the insurance company, so we've done all that, and now it's time that we're armed with this knowledge to go back to the billing department, and we're going to look to really alleviate this painful fake problem that they put on us. How do we do this?
That's an important point at the very top of this conversation. I want everyone to remember all medical bills are negotiable. And that is because, referring back to what we discussed at the beginning, is that the providers make up numbers of what their services technically cost, allegedly cost, to get more, because they have to discount it to try to get business from a contract with these big insurance companies to get more patients. How low can they discount it? Look, we're giving you a 90% discount. It was only worth $3. A complete blood count was literally worth $3. I think $336 or something, but they charge $300 for it, $100, $300 for it. These are all made up numbers, which is why every medical bill is negotiable. But in the United States culture, we're not comfortable negotiating in our culture. And I tell people, you know what? You're not negotiating. This is what you're doing. And this is why I call it the 3 steps to crush medical debt. 3 simple steps to crush medical debt. Step 1, you talked about, Jeffrey, is when you get, again, I laugh so I don't cry. When you get this wish list from the provider for the services that you received, and you get an alleged bill, and it's a wish list. Again, they're wishing and hoping and praying you'll fall for it. If it does not have CPT codes on it, it's not a real bill. It's not an accurate itemized bill. It's not a real bill. So step 1, you're going to call the provider, that number that they want you to call to make a payment plan for the full amount, that made up wish list fantasy amount. No, you're going to call that number and ask for a real bill. Just say, I need something with CPT codes.
Oh, you're playing the game. I love that.
And they're going to give you pushback. They're going to give you pushback. But we don't have that information here. We don't have that kind of bill here. Or if they know you have insurance, you're going to have to call your insurance company or go to your insurance website and find out what your EOB is online. There are all these terms at you. No, you're going to say this. If you get pushback, I need something with CPT codes, quote, as per HIPAA federal law, unquote.
The magic words. You're giving us the magic words to uncloak this nonsense, to put them in their place. I'm not ignorant here. I know what's going on, and you have a legal obligation, as per HIPAA, to give me the CPT code. So cough it up. Let's go.
Yeah, send it to me. And if I've had someone told repeatedly, well, no, HIPAA, the patient was saying that they use the term HIPAA. I need something with CPT codes as per HIPAA law. They said the person still didn't budge. And I would say, what I do is I say, I really need something with CPT codes as per HIPAA federal law. If I can't get that, I'm going to have to file HIPAA violation federal complaint against you, the department, and the hospital. Can you tell me who I should speak to, who I can speak to? Actually, that's not what I say. I say never ask a closed-ended question, because they'll just say no just to get you off the phone.
Yes.
Who can I speak with? Who can help me? An open-ended question, right? Who, what, when, how, why? Who can I speak with? Who can help me with this? Who can help me get a bill with CPT codes as per HIPAA law? And if after that, if they still say we can't help you, then yeah, you're going to file a HIPAA violation complaint. But that's another story. Get the CPT code. Say, look, I know you have it. What you might want to do, if you have insurance, the insurance company has it. Why would a provider send a CPT code, a real bill, to insurance companies? They won't accept anything. They're not going to pay anything that doesn't have a CPT code on it. Why would they send it to the patient? Why 9 out of 10 hospital systems send it to a patient, something demanding payment that doesn't have a CPT code on it? If they don't send it, they wouldn't dare send it to the insurance companies.
And Virgie, would the insurance company, if I called my insurance company, would they give me the CPT codes that they receive from the hospital?
Excellent question, Jeffrey, for clarifying. Thank you for asking, because that clarifies what they will give you. It's called an EOB, or an explanation of benefits.
Okay.
And often you'll see that it comes from your insurance company. People often confuse it with a bill, but insurance companies don't send you bills. And to remind you, they'll say someplace on it, like, this is not a bill. The EOBs, explanation of benefits, will have, if you turn it on the back, the pages will have the CPT codes for each service and what they paid for or not, or percentage of it. Great point. And that's your first step, is to get the CPT codes. If you have insurance and you had to go to your insurance company to get the EOB, think about filing I include this information in the book and other places. And if you remind me, I'll include it with the show. I'll write a note to include it. I've had to file a HIPAA violation complaint with the Federal Office of Civil Rights. It's every patient's right who receives care in the U.S. healthcare system. All right, so that's step 1, get the CPT codes. And then step 2, you're going to take those CPT codes and you're going to Google them. So what happens, basically, you're doing like a price scanner with Google. So a barcode on a product, when you go to the store, you take it on a price scanner and up pops like a brief description of what the product is and the size. It's a 16-ounce size bottle of this particular brand of water as opposed to 8 ounce, and the price that particular provider charges. Okay. Same thing with the CPT codes in step 2. You're going to find out what plugin, let's say you got a CPT code 99213, type in CPT code 99213, and up will pop a brief description of it. It's a type of outpatient office visit. Then it takes a little bit more digging. You're going to find, this is really important, plug in what Medicare pays for that CPT code for that medical service. Okay. Why? The federal government, what they pay for medical services, that is a fair baseline retail rate. Anything else, the insurance companies pay more than Medicare, which is why the providers want to work with and get into contracts with insurance companies, because they pay more than Medicare, often 200, 300% more. But usually, if you're not paying Medicare rate, what Medicare pays for that service, each medical service, you're paying on average 300 to 500% more than what Medicare pays for it. And it's really not unusual, unfortunately, 1,000 to 2,000% more.
Wow. Talk about a business.
I went into the wrong business.
Exactly.
We should start our own, private health insurance companies. When you're gambling, you can't beat the house except for maybe blackjack. So yeah, the insurance company, they're always going to win. So you're going to take that number. So let's say that in step one, I got this wish list that said I owed $90,000 for an emergency surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And step two, I realized, okay, the CPT codes add up to $10,000. Let's just make the math simple.
Sure.
That's what Medicare pays for each of those. So I total up, I have $10,000 now that I owe as per step two. When I Googled and did a price scan on those CPT codes for the services, medical services I received.
Okay.
Step three, you're going to call back the provider, that billing department, that number that you call to get the CPT codes from.
Right.
And you're going to say, hey, yeah, I got a bill. And in my research, the bill I got was $90,000. But in my research, what I'm willing and able to pay is $10,000. Who can I speak with? Again, don't ask, can I speak with somebody? No close-ended questions where they can say yes or no and lie to you just to get you off the phone and bully you or whatever, intimidate you or block you. Who can I speak with who can help me get an interest-free payment plan? Because many of us, when we're starting out in our business and our lives and trying to start our passion projects and basically our life's work, we don't have just $10,000 lying around, or maybe that was our seed fund to start our business. So you're going to ask for an interest-free payment plan that you can afford, that fits your budget. And let's say, again, I'm just starting out. I can only squeeze out, this is an emergency. I was on a really, really tight budget. I can't squeeze more than $100 out of my budget to pay for this. And you're going to say, who can I speak with who will help me come up with a payment plan for $10,000 for which I can pay $100 a month? Again, they're trained. You're going to get pushback. And you're going to be thinking this too. They're going to say, if we just accept $100 a month, it'll take us forever to get paid. It'll take us years. And you're thinking the same thing. They're like, oh my gosh, they're never going to accept this. So Jeffrey, why would they accept a $100 a month payment plan on something like $10,000? It'll take them 5, 7, 10 years easily to pay off because they know it's cheaper. You're reaching out to them. You're not avoiding them. You're not hiding from the bill. You're being proactive. You're coming to them. So that saves them money from having to chase you down. Where theoretically, if you don't pay anything at all, they would have to sell it, eat it all, or sell it for pennies on the dollar to a debt collections company. This is why they're going to accept it. So stand your ground, step 3, and say, this is what I can afford. This is a payment plan I can make. Who can I speak with? Who can help me?
And you know what, Virgie, as you talk about this in Deep Wealth, our 9-step roadmap, we always talk about tuning into the world's favorite radio station for your buyer, for your advisors.
WIIFM, what's in it for me? The number one, the only radio station everybody listens to in the world, right?
And so really what you're saying is, sometimes our self-talk can talk us out of everything. Well, $100 a month, we're not going to take that. But when we tune into their world, for starters, we're not filing a federal complaint, which is a violation. That's a pretty big deal on the legal side. Or they're going to be selling it, as you say, for pennies on the dollar. So sure, it'll take them 8+ years to collect. But you know what? $10,000, even 8+ years interest-free, is $10,000 is better off than selling to a collections agency. Maybe it's only hundreds of dollars that they would get, or having to write it off, which is a loss now for them, or having all these expensive high-priced lawyers. That's another story to defend them with the government doing all those things. Really, from their perspective, as negative as it sounds, you're absolutely right. This is the best deal around, and this is the way to go. Virgie, we can keep on going because there's all these different steps and different parts in the book. But here's a question for you, because we're starting to bump up against some time. You know what? Our listeners, they're smart, they're successful. Can they do this on their own? They absolutely can. They can get your book, master it, go through it step by step. Having said that, there's a cost to everything. We're running the business. We don't necessarily have the time to, yes, it's important, but we don't have the time to do this. We have other things that are going to be making us more money, moving the dial on the business. And just like in other areas, if I have a legal issue, I'll go to a lawyer. I'm not going to defend myself. If I'm going to be buying or selling a house, I'll get the appropriate advisors, a real estate agent, a real estate lawyer, and do all those kinds of things. Could I turn to someone like yourself where I can come to you and say, hey, here's my issue. Let me know how this is going to work financially with you. But if it sounds right, can you just take this off my plate and see what you can do? Is that something that we can do?
Absolutely. Yes, exactly correct. You can do that. The reason, however, and I'll talk about how to do that in a second, but the reason why I want folks to become medically, financially literate, just basic, 3 steps, is because it can save you from having to pay the percentage to the folks who can take care of it for you. There was a case, $80,000 bill. It's a long story, that the mom of twins, a couple had twins that were born premature, and the NICU was coming after them for their share of an $80,000 bill that they frankly knew they didn't owe. It was a mistake. The insurance said it's not an emergency, so we're not paying for it. And the provider said, well, the insurance company says it's not an emergency. How is a baby being born prematurely, 2 babies, not just one, being born prematurely? How is it not an emergency? So they were going back and forth, and they retired. Successful. I think they were actually both, I think they ran 2 companies independently. So they had the resources, the intellectual resources to understand, but they didn't have the time. And this has been going on for a year, going back and forth. And they just said, we're going to pay a company. And there are companies that will do this, medical billing advocate companies for profit that will do this for you for a percentage of usually what they save you. In this case, they saved them $80,000, wiped off because they didn't owe it in the first place. So they paid the company $8,000. You just have these basic 3 steps of medical financial literacy. I may be able to save you 100%. You may be able to save yourself 100%. The other thing is, the reason why I did this and wrote this book and why I'm doing this work, Jeffrey, is because we don't have time. I started my own company a couple of times, self-directed IRAs instead of spending time. I don't have time to try to look for VC money. That's a full-time job in itself. I wrote this book for people that don't have time. Either you don't have the temporal resources, you don't have the time resources, the intellectual resources, because you're sick, you're in pain, you're not feeling well, you don't have the financial resources. So I wrote the book for that reason. 3 simple steps to crush medical debt. Just learn them and you'll be able to figure out, hey, I can do this myself. It just will take at most 2, maybe 3 phone calls and I'm done. I do want to say this, there is an organization that is nonprofit that will do this. It's called the patientadvocate.org. It's the Patient Advocacy Foundation based in DC. They can't go to court with you. They can't go that far, but they do a lot of amazing work and they save people literally with bills that are tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars. You can do that. Pursue that, please, for free. Patient Advocate, I think it's patientadvocacy.org, and look it up, the Patient Advocacy Foundation. Yes, someone can help you, but again, Jeffrey, the point is the reason why I do this work is so that you don't have to, it does not take time out of your day. Last thing, think about your hourly wage. In my case, $90,000. Now I'm an expert. I can make these phone calls. I can do it in 3 steps. It took me 10 minutes. What's the hourly wage? What did I save myself? To make the math simple, let's say it was a $100,000 bill and it takes you 2 years to fight it, which is not unusual. It sounds crazy, but unfortunately it's not unusual. But let's just say it took you a year to, again, make the math simple. It took you a year to fight it. So that's an hourly wage. You save $100,000. You figured out, I don't owe any of this money or only owe part of it. You save yourself, that's a good part-time job. That's the good, side hustle money. That's great seed money for your business, for your company.
Absolutely. Well, you're paying yourself, over a year.
That's your time. It's your hourly wage. I was paying myself, I think, $250 an hour.
Okay.
So with saving $90,000, I think that came out to be an hourly rate of, I think it was like $100,000 an hour, something crazy like that. My point is, think about your time as you're running businesses, you're really busy, get the 3 steps, learn how to do it so you can do it yourself. And that's a great, great money saver. And you're paying yourself thousands and potentially thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars per hour.
And just to do some crazy math here, let's take your $100,000 example and let's really bump up the hours. I don't think this would take 20 hours based on what you're taking, but let's say it's 20 hours because you read the book and however long that took, and then the rest was spent on calls back and forth. And I know in your book you say document everything, email. So you've done all that. Well, 20 hours into $100,000, you're paying yourself $5,000 an hour. Is that worth your while? And you know what, for our listeners, you can always say, okay, my last resort is to go to a third party. We will put, by the way, the Patient Advocacy Foundation, and it's patientadvocate.org. We'll put that in the show notes. But perhaps the plan is, let me educate myself. Let me see what I can do on my own to deal with this. And if things aren't going the right way, then I'll get a third party and off we go. And so there's so much power in there. So the takeaway for the listeners, get the book, read about it now. You never know when this is going to come in handy for yourself, a family, a friend, a colleague, someone at work, a loved one. You can really be a game changer, a lifesaver, literally, for them on the financial side by doing this. Virgie, we're at the point now, we're going to start wrapping up. Unfortunately, we're going to start wrapping up this episode. We could just talk on and the stories and the wisdom and the wealth that you have. But let's do this. Let's do a quick thought experiment. And I have the privilege of asking every guest on the Deep Wealth podcast. I'd like you to think about that incredible movie, Back to the Future. And in that movie, you have this magical DeLorean car that can take you to any point in time. Virgie, now imagine it's tomorrow morning and you look outside your window. Not only is the DeLorean car there, but the door is open and it's waiting for you to hop on in. And you're now going to go to any point in your life. It's Virgie as a young child, a teenager, whatever the point in time would be. What are you telling your younger self in terms of life wisdom? Or, hey, Virgie, do this, but don't do that. What does that sound like?
I would go back to about the 25-year-old Virgie who just graduated from medical school and had made my dad and mom and grandmother, my family, humongously proud.
Okay.
My dad was the only one in his family that went to college. It took him 13 years to do it, but he did it.
Wow.
And this was just a big deal. And I would go back and give them a hug, each a hug, and ask more questions about the stories of the hardships that they overcame. Jeffrey, I wrote the book. I wrote What Your Doctor Wants You to Know to Crush Medical Debt. Crush Medical Debt was written at a 4th to 9th grade reading level because I wanted everyone to have access to it. And that's because I wrote it with my grandmother, my father's mother in mind, who never made it past 6th grade.
Wow.
So that's what I would do. I would go back, hug my grandmother, tell her stories and tell her this is why I did it. I would go back, hug my father and thank him for everything. He was a self-taught financial whiz investor and taught me everything I know, and hug my mom because she was pretty freaking awesome too, overcame a lot too. So that's what I would do.
Right. You know what? You're paying homage to your family and you're really, as I like to say, standing on the shoulders of giants who paved the way.
Jeffrey, you took my motto. That's my number one motto. I stand on the shoulders of giants. Yes, sir. Good stuff.
There you have it. There you have it. And, we're going to have everything in the show notes, including a link to get the book and to your website. Virgie, if someone would like to reach you online, where would be the best place?
You can find us, of course, at crushmedicaldebt.com. If you want to reach out to me, that's dr.virgie, dr.virgie at crushmedicaldebt.com.
Doesn't get any easier. And so for our listeners, there you have it. That can be a life-changing situation, whether it's with the book or you're reaching out to Virgie or you're going to the website. I really encourage you to do that, be smart, and do the right thing here. Listen, as we wrap up this episode, a heartfelt thank you for taking part of your day and sharing your wisdom and your insights of truly what can change lives and really make a difference. And on that note, please, as always, stay healthy and safe.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
The Deep Wealth experience was definitely a game changer for me.
This course is one of the best investments you will ever make because you will get an ROI of 100 times that. Anybody who doesn't go through it will lose millions.
If you don't have time for this program, you'll never have time for a successful liquidity.
I mean, it was the best value of any business course I've ever taken. The money was very well spent.
Compared to when we first began, today I feel better prepared, but in some respects, maybe less prepared, not because of the course, but because the course brought to light so many things that I thought we were on top of that we need to fix.
I 100% believe there's never a great time for a business owner to allocate extra hours into his or her week or day. So it's an investment that will yield results today. I thought I will reap the benefit of this program in 3 to 5 years down the road. But as soon as I stepped forward into the program, my mind changed immediately.
There was so much value in the experience that the time I invested paid back so much for the energy that was expended.
The Deep Wealth experience compared to other programs is the top. What we learned is very practical. Sometimes you learn stuff that is great to learn, but you never use it. The stuff we learned from Deep Wealth experience, I believe is going to benefit us both.
I've done an executive MBA. I've worked for billion-dollar companies before. I've worked for smaller companies before I started my business. I've been running my business successfully now for getting close to a decade. We're on a growth trajectory. Reflecting back on the Deep Wealth, I knew less than 10% what I know now. Maybe close to 1% even.
Hands down, the best program in which I've ever participated. And we've done a lot of different things over the years. We've been in other mastermind groups, gone to many seminars, workshops, conferences, retreats, read books. This was so different. I haven't had an experience that's anything close to this in all the years that we've been at this. It's 5-star, A+.
I would highly recommend it to any super busy business owner out there. And Deep Wealth is an accurate name for it. This program leads to deeper wealth and happier wealth, not just deeper wealth. I don't think there's a dollar value that could be associated with such an experience and knowledge that could be applied today and forever.
Are you leaving millions on the table? Please visit www.deepwealth.com/success to learn more. If you're not on my email list, you'll want to be. Sign up at www.deepwealth.com/podcast. And if you enjoyed this episode, if it added value, if you walked away with some new insights and strategies, please leave a review on your favorite podcast channel. Reviews help us reach new listeners, grow the show, and continue to create content that you'll enjoy. And as we wrap up this episode, as always, please stay healthy and safe.